I think women are really commendable to even be dating men. What would you say to a woman who calls you and says, uko wapi? Haya, panda kitanda na kuja.
I think I would find that to be unattractive. Hiyo ni kaa saa umekuwa mwanaume mwenzangu. No, it's not feminine.
Just because I am dating you does not mean I am obligated to have sex with you. I can easily say no.
You know the deal. We normally just hook up and chill. Because now if you're not coming up to hook up, what are we coming to do? Because I don't want you any other way. It's so wonderful that you chose to hang out with us. If you don't know who I am, my name is Eric. Can you imagine? Did you know what Eric means? Eric means ruler. And my second name is Oduor Omondi, in whichever order you prefer. It's so delightful to have you on. Ask Eric is conversations between two people, that being you and the other person is me. So we love to speak with one another and not at one another. I learn a great deal in all of these discourses, and it's so nice that you've chosen to be here. We love to have a creed on this show where we say the purpose of our knowing is not just for knowing sake, but is also for doing. The more we know, the more it's deserving of us to do, so that when we know better, we do better. Very recently, I was having a friend over at my house and we got to talk about sexual hygiene from a very male perspective. One of these Nigerian boxers who boxes in the States got into an accident and he lost his two friends. And we saw an uproar, if you're on social media sometimes like I am, of women going on about how good this man was looking. That guy called Joshua somebody, right? Anthony Joshua. But there's also a pastor called that. Is there a pastor called Anthony Joshua? Those Nigerians have two English names. Jacob Joseph, Isaac Newton. and so the conversation between my friend and I morphed from sexual hygiene, and then we went to this good-looking boxer, Nordidi, and then we went to desire. And I was telling him that it is seldom talked about what women view sex as, the different ways that women view sex in comparison to men. I hear these in a lot of vernacular when men are talking. Men assume women are like them. And I think it also suffices to say that there are some women who can wrongly assume that men are like them. I don't know, I will not speak for women. And so in this conversation, I want us to explore hygiene and how men and women differ when it comes to sex. So that's the headspace I want you in. So pretend you've never ever heard those three letters put together, and then put your thoughts together, and then we're going to have that conversation. Again, the creed of the show is to make it as interactive as possible. There's a gentleman in a nice kofia who I cannot see. He's somewhere with a microphone. So as we go along, he's going to pass you the mic. One of the things I found fairly recently as an adult, these are my confessions. I was in my 30s at you wouldn't believe it. And I really only then discovered that how we perceive desire from a man's perspective to a woman's perspective is very different. So when a man wants to be on, do you know those guys who say when you're in college, they call a friend and say, hey, my friend is out of town. Do you want to come over? So we go chill at my friend's house. And you'd hear a lot of guys saying, I don't know what's wrong with her. She's not playing ball. It only took me a few decades to realize that what men portray in spontaneity and desire, women take some time to arrive at. And again, one of the things I'm also learning fairly recently is knowledge is not common. You know the way you and I can sit and say, but that's obvious. Kwani hajui? Imagine kuna watu wajui na ni wengi. Hao watu wajui ni wengi. So a difference I wanted to highlight, which I learned in my 30s, at least I've learned it for a couple of years now, more than a decade, is that men, while spontaneous, women are needing a story. They need a plot. And why this is important, especially to a man, if I was to speak to my younger self, then it would behoove a man to have his ducks in a row in many aspects of his life before wanting to engage in things like coitus. Because now if you are trying to get lucky and you call the woman and then she says something like, who do you live with? And you live with your 4 cousins, you see it's going to be a challenge. And now wewe umekwama kabisa. Unaona Celine inaenda kuwa ni kitu ya ajabu sana. So Celine is laughing at me. So I was learning by myself that the differences that are seldom spoken about for obvious reasons and some not so obvious, because people again in the year 2026 are shy. But now we are also learning that people actually get pregnant through sex, okay? And then through this sex, people get unwanted pregnancies. And then through this sex again, people do very good things, and some people do very bad things. So why I think this is an important conversation to have is not to have it from a very crass standpoint, but to have it from a place that is educative. If you've shared a material or you've read something that you think would work for this conversation, I am happy to hear it. But I'm also going to play the devil's advocate from the man's perspective, because a lot of men cannot voice some of these conversations that we would have here. For obvious reasons, they'll be judged or they'll be shy and so on and so forth. But if you're not shy and you're a man, then feel most welcome. Nasikia mlango inabubujika. Anyway, so how do men and women define sex? Number one, there's a lot of pressure that a woman might not be aware about when it comes to sex from a man perspective around performance. Performance is a big headache because it's imprinted on billboards and in a lot of men's minds that intensity far outweighs quality. Women, on the other hand, have a different story to tell in that regard. I'm not speaking on women's behalf. I am going to only speak of what I've heard about men. And I'm sharing with you what I've been told to report. So there's a lot of pressure about performance. You have to perform. You have to really perform vis-a-vis experience. And so a lot of men come into the conversation with anxiety. They sit around thinking, I don't know if I have enough wood in my fire to be able to fulfill this task. What I keep telling my male friends in the same vein, surrounding and comfort are very key to a woman more than your need for wanting to get on with a woman, which again is not talked about. So a man would be weirdly comfortable in a dimly lit place trying to get lucky, and the lady is sitting there thinking to himself, I don't know if this is very conducive for me. So please engage me. Where's the mic? What are some of the ways you've heard or seen in your mind that a man should learn? If you're talking to a younger man, an older man, from a woman's perspective, that you differ from a man when it comes to sex and sexuality. It can be anywhere from the way men speak to whatever they do and not do, and so on and so forth. We keep it PG because this thing is going on mainstream. So usianze kulia hapo useme mtu alikunyonga. Where is the mic? I can't see where the mic is at. So somebody will pass the mic. Who do we have?
Hi everyone. I've said let me get the courage to be the first one to open the floor because it's a very important conversation. I think one of the things is when it comes to sexual matters, there's a lot of obligation and responsibilities for women, but we hardly hear of what's the man's responsibility. Because if it comes to practicing safe sex, it's the woman's duty to remind a man that you have to wear protection. If I don't say it, he'll assume I don't want it. Number two, even when it comes to hygiene, they'll expect the lady, you're the one to shower, you're the one to prep, and ensure you're clean. How many times do men bath themselves before they get to bed or even after sex? How many? So I think there's a lot of responsibilities and obligations laid on the women's back. And I don't know, because we are in a patriarchal society, because even when it comes to shame in regards to sex, it will be wewe ni malaya, referring to a woman. But how many men are sleeping around with women and they're not name tagged? If today I want to get into a political seat, if I'm not married, it's either I'm a prostitute. Even when people do not have evidence that I'm sleeping around. If it is in the corporate space, if I get promoted as a lady, ula nalalanga na mabosses. Rarely will you hear such comments when a male colleague is promoted. Number two is the society, especially men, need to learn something about consent. Just because I am dating you does not mean I am obligated to have sex with you. I can easily say no. Even if I said yes when you started kissing, and then you go to the next step and I say no. It is not the first yes that I said that works. It is the no that I've said when we have started the action that should matter. So we also need to create an understanding that no is no. Even men need to take some responsibilities. And every time you, as a man, you call a lady a prostitute, ask yourself, she was sleeping with a fellow man, so where does that place the other man? Thank you.
Makofi is German. The conversation about consent is very important. I think that touches me because we've seen again femicides and these heinous crimes happening against women and now children. And a lot of us, again, as men, do not quite, we feign amnesia when it comes to bodily autonomy, when it comes to women's bodies. And I think that should be spoken about quite loudly. Not to sound sanctimonious, but I feel sometimes, you know the way women like to say men can be slow? So in a man's mind, if you've come over, we've been making out, and you came 2 days ago, and now we are making out again, and we are making out now again, and then it ended up with a very happy ending that time. And then now, that day you say, no, then you maybe dealt with me circumphoniously after saying no. This man is thinking this is possibly at Tieno's style. How do we then make the conversation about consent sink in a way that can be followed through with a non-contrary action, if that makes sense? Because when I have conversations around consent with the male circles I know, some would argue that a lot of women, which is a very dangerous take, and I get it. They say the women they are dating would say, no, not now. And then, they'd switch up without saying yes now. And so the no is sort of like a prelude for, let me see how badly you want it so that you engage. So from a woman's perspective, can a man expect the no, as simple as it is, because Mandela used to say that no is a complete sentence, but also maybe the no not to be mixed up with mixed signals of yeses. I understand where you're coming from. I understand consent. I really get it. Provided it's a no, you should move on. But we've also seen conflicting accounts of a woman who said no, but it's like, but you didn't even want me. Si ungejaribu ujikaze pia wewe. You didn't, see that I left because now you jikazi. So whose part to play is that in such a scenario? I hope I meant that I was trying to be very safe with my words so that I don't land in trouble. There's a cancel immediately.
Let me say from my take, I think in relationships, most of the time, discussions about sex are not had early enough to even ask, am I ready? Are we ready? Are we ready for it? It's the assumption where once I get to know you, I come to your house, then the conclusion is you are ready without really asking. I think it's imperative for people to openly have conversations.
Maybe if we switch up the question, how do we normally give consent in a happy, healthy, normal relationship? I seldom have I ever heard, maybe it's just me, two people saying, tonight I'm coming over to your house and hey, I'm going to deal with you circumphoniously, aka this is consent. You would imagine that, say, if I asked a woman out for coffee, this is how at least I've read and I've seen it play out in Nairobi. Hey, what are you doing on Friday? Can we have coffee? Yeah, we hang out, have coffee. Yeah. Then after like 2 weeks, the chick says, umekula, usilale bila kukula we. You know the way you are normally tired, eat. And then the guy says, nilimekula baby. Ulikula nini? Kulikuwa na maindomi hapa nikakula indomi. Kula ugali baby, eat for me. Then he says, tomorrow, I'm going to eat for you now. Kesho ni siku ya matumbo. So the guy eats for her the matumbo, okay? Now the guy says, I'm going for a symposium, a work symposium in Naivasha. And I was thinking, see, you can hop along, we go. Then we'll stay the night. The symposium is ending on Friday. We go on Thursday. We stay the 2 nights and then you and I can extend. Then the woman says, okay, sawa, that sounds fine. I'm not so busy. I am coming. So in the assumption, and I like your points that assumptions are merely hypotheses. It's not a reality. What you're assuming, I can see a woman who's never been with a man, maybe grew up in a very free home, getting into a car, going to Naivasha to go and see zebras. But I can also see a man in Naivasha blowing mukobero and those maganda ya njugu in readiness for what in his mind is a sexual rendezvous. Maybe another conversation we should have is, how do we consent to sex away from implying sex? Because more often than not, we imply sex more than we say, okay, fine, I'm ready. I mean, I've had women say the vibe was just vibing, one thing led to the other, and then it was amazing, babes, it was. So now that same guy who saw your vibe vibing and took the chance now gets like, okay, so is the vibe vibing? Is the vibe not vibing? Any takers, Stacey? It's okay, I won't discuss you with someone older. Why this is important, especially, recently I put up a post on TikTok. On the post, I was talking about how women, and I started this post by saying, Atieno, that I mourn the way women perceive relationships from a place of something happening to them more than active participants in the duality of a union. And I was even giving an example and saying, Gabriel, I've cut onions and tomatoes at your house for the past 18 months. We've truly enjoyed. Umeningiza hata kwa kabati. It has been fantabulous. Sitakata. But upon reflection, I think I want more. I want exclusivity with just one person, and I want exclusivity, a relationship with just one person. But every time I've brought the subject around these two subject matters, you are very evasive, not to give you any pressure. But I think I'm going to absent myself from this particular relationship and present myself as I am getting ready for somebody who wants the things that I want. So that looks like this. You're not going to call me, and if you do, I won't pick. And I'm not going to text you. And I was telling the poor lady, is it going to hurt you so much you'll cry in your sleep? It might. But it is the thing that is leading you to the thing that you want. So I feel like that stands in good stead to you wasting your time for another 18 months in perpetuity, because this relationship is situationship. If we can own with our chest the things that we think are important to us by voicing it, I think it goes a longer way. And that is also a conversation that needs to be had around consent. So that consent is not just one person giving and the other person receiving, it's also symbiotic, because even a man can turn around and say, you know, the other night I was really tired, and when I said no, you said ovulating in your 30s is hectic and you had to help yourself to me. You see what I mean? Does that make sense? So yes, I agree that consent should be communicated, and once a woman or a man says no, then that should be the end of the conversation. But I think vitu kwa ground ni different kidogo, and I wish we could have that conversation authentically. Where's the mic? Somebody wants to have a take?
So when I hear about consent, I think about the way the Nairobi dating scene is vis-a-vis intentional dating versus intentional dating. There's this thing, innuendo prospers, where we just want the vibe, but we don't want to commit. And I know I have other people that I don't want to commit as well. And what we are getting is transactional, because there's this scarcity mentality where it's like, you are here, I am there. So it's good to, we want that emotional satisfaction, but we don't want the commitment. So I feel consent is challenged because of society. Yeah, so that's just a thought. Maybe I'm losing people. Maybe someone can explain.
Yeah, so you reckon, if I hear you correctly, that we are very casual about commitment, that we don't care about the important things like consent. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but I also feel it's not, the casualness comes in because of the commitment, because people don't want to commit, or they have their other vices that they want to hide. It's easier to just give into it and just go on, so that we don't have to have that conversation of, okay, so now let's commit and make it official. Because once we commit and make it official, then I am burdened with the responsibility of, now I need to act like a boyfriend.
Yeah, I see how that can make sense. Yeah, interesting. Somebody else wants to go? What's your biggest challenge with consent? We are discussing how men and women differ in the way they give or receive sex. And there's a conversation that has come about consent, which I think is a hot potato. What you say is very pregnant. I'm thinking about it. If we are casually having sex, okay? So you've already subjected yourself to casually being with me sexually. So when you turn around and say, oh, by the way, and I also want bodily or autonomy. It reeks of a demand I've not signed up for because I don't respect you like that. See, you know the deal. We normally just hook up and chill. So now you're starting issues. Because now if you're not coming up to hook up, what are we coming to do? Because I don't want you any other way. I want you one way, and you're now trying to tell me that you don't want to come to me in that way. So I see how that can be interesting. Watu wanaangalia chini. Ukiwa hapa, ndio ule jamaa anataka kuongea. All right, my brother, what's your name, sir?
I'm Martin.
Martin, karibu.
There's also an issue of drunk consent.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, there are people who give consent when they are drunk, and when they are sober, there is no consent. So there's that one. Then number two, I think as well, the conversation should be more honest. From day one, you are deciding to come to my place. You should have said, I'm not comfortable with having sex on that day, and I don't think we should have sex. So when I come over, we can even meet publicly to avoid temptations, you know. Sometimes I like quoting the Bible a bit. Even David had to flee. People have to run away. So you can't come and tempt someone in his home. And I'm not saying that I don't refuse there should be consent, but you can't come and tempt someone in his or her home, and then you don't expect some repercussions. I think you should tell them, honestly, on this day, I don't think it is a really good idea for me to come over, you know. Let us not waste each other's time.
Yeah.
But if you don't want it, I don't mean it as of that time. I just mean that we need to have honest and deliberate conversations that we agree on.
I think that's a fair point. Makofi for Martin. Martin, the only thing I could add to that is this exercising mutism is really painful and damaging a lot of us because we live life in assumptions. And maybe it's symbiotic. It should come from both sides because sometimes we lay the blame again on the lady so much, and many times we also lay the blame on the man so much. So we have to have a middle ground. If the lady says, I'm disinterested, I was hoping to just come and eat, and we can do that in a restaurant because I'm not comfortable to come into your house, and you don't have money or you don't feel like spending money like that because you're hoping to get lucky, then you can just mutually agree and say, kula kwenu, wacha nikarange hizi mayai zangu. I was expecting much more than the mayai. But we are not honest. You see, we are not honest. Both male and females are not honest. Somebody says, if someone comes to your house, even to your point about you've come to somebody's house with the tightest dress, not again to abusing consent. The way you've carried yourself, you've gone over to their house, you have a little nice dress, he said we are cooking and then we do dessert and then maybe I buy you a bottle of wine, which wine do you want? All through in his mind, he's thinking, tick, amekubali wine, tick, chocolate, tick, amekubali cake. And then anasema, tuweke movie gani Netflix? Cheki mtoto decide, tuacha ni come babe. You see? So all of that thing is shrouded in, there is no I've okayed for us to have sex in all of that conversation. But it's implied. What shocks some men is when it's implied up to that point, then he's unzipping, then you're like, gosh, you're disgusting. Then you're like, okay, I'm sorry. Not to say that he should further proceed with whatever it is he was trying to do, but I think earlier communication can prevent some of this madness. Any other takers? Yes, sir.
My name is Alex. I just want to share a thought. Men and women view sex in a completely different way. For most men, tabu niambie nika ni ukweli. When you have sex, what's the purpose for kwenda kupata hiyo sex? It's like you are seeking a sense of freedom, ama like fulfillment. And I think for women, it's more of trying to experience love. You see, it's totally different. Like we don't
connection.
Yeah, it's totally different. Purpose ya kwenda ku have sex, and then you find out that people have different perspectives towards sex for the male and female. Wasichana wengi maybe wanataka ku experience love waki have sex, but for the man is totally different. That was just a thought. So naweza taka kupata feedback from
a lady. Thank God I'm not a lady. Gosh.
Any woman when you're willing to.
I am Christine. Sometimes I feel like men are scared of sexually liberated women who know what they want, how they want it. I think they like innocent women, you know, because if you find a woman who knows what she wants and she tells you, but then when we go indoors, we're like, what? This is not what I wanted. And we had communicated, and you were like very jumpy on the texts. You're telling me you will perform. So I think men in consent that way, they're scared of sexually liberated because even a woman would consent. I think men have not met nonchalant women who just there for the sex and then they're done. There's no emotion on it that I have to be in love with you. No, not really. There are few, but many women, yes, we do sex emotionally because we feel like, and it's beautiful when you put emotions to it. Yes, that's my take.
Thank you. That's interesting. I like her take, and Cecilia, thank you for sharing. I think a lot of us as men have not embraced the idea that a woman might want sex. We explain it away that, oh, she has daddy issues, which may be true, but what would you say to a woman who calls you and says, uko wapi? Aya, panda kitanda nakuja. And she's very serious. Na hata akimaliza kudeal na wewe anaoga na kwambia sasa tutaonana Tuesday, naweza pitia ama Wednesday nimeshika na usinipigie. How do you handle that? She wants to connect with you physically but not emotionally. Give him the mic.
I think I would find that to be unattractive because you're not a woman. Hiyo ni kaa saa umekuwa mwanaume mwenzangu. No, it's not feminine. It's not feminine. Okay? The fact that we are attracted to women is because they have that feminine trait of emotions. Because most of us men, si tunashindanga tu kwa thoughts or something, kuna kitu tunataka kufanya. And then when we meet with these women, they're like, say, when you just see a woman pass who is sexually attractive, hizo thoughts zako zote huwa zinapotea and you're like, damn, look at that. You know, like the fact that tunakuanga attracted to these women is because they remove us from our thoughts, like to our bodies. Something of that sort.
Unasikia venye mnaambiwa vizuri?
Yeah. So that's my take on that.
Fair enough. There is somebody who needs a mic. Please pass me the mic. Pass the mic.
I think it's only a gangster who begets a gangster. And I'm saying that because I'd have sex for emotional connections as well, not just for the sake of passing time. The reason I'm saying only a gangster begets a gangster is because there's no way I can tell a lady haya panda kwa kitanda ningoje na kuja sahi. You know, hata atashangaa kwani kichwa yako ifanye, are you okay? And at the end of the day there will be a disconnection because she'd view you seeing her as a tool. It will be uncomfortable. There's no way unaweza ambia mtu hivyo. A gangster, if you kitafuta mtu unatafuta mtu mwenye anakaa kaa wewe. Tuesday saa 6 na wewe tupatane Friday saa 7.
Yeah, pass the mic. No, oh. Yeah, so I hear you. The other aspect I feel men seldom pay attention to is the psychological and the physical barrier and how situations can cause mental stress to a woman to want to get comfortable with you to have sex. You had mentioned that men sort of release pressure or whatever it is they release when they're going through whatever doldrums, be it financial or otherwise. But even the security of tenure of a relationship plays a very pivotal role to most women than I think most men care about. And sometimes it's in the way you show up emotionally, even before the act of sex. And so what that looks like then is owning the relationship. Simple things that women try to explain away to men. Things like labels, like what are we doing? What is this? Where is this going? Most men wish that away, like, we're unasumbua. But those things add up to psychological sort of peaceful space for a woman than I think, again, we care about. As we are ready to go even in a dark alley somewhere, but a woman has to think and go through a range of emotions. So I think a good chunk of mind should be paid by a man to where he's placing the woman emotionally in his conduct, even in her absentia, in his character, even in her absentia, and in his conversation. And so if a woman should stumble on your phone when you're snoring or showering, and it says something like, huyu ni wakunipitishia tu wakati, then it is damaging, isn't it? And so I think if we wielded our significant other with a sense of somebodyness, men are very drab many times, and men are very passive many times, and men can be very unfeeling many times. In fact, I think women are really commendable to even be dating men. If I was a man who was hoping for a man, I would just be like, hey, wacha niende nizikwe. We as men don't bother ourselves to care even about simple things like the anatomy of the woman you're with. We don't. We really don't. And things like, if you took some time around my ear knob, that would be nice. Hapana, wewe ni nani? Unaingia maima hiyo, haba. And now that goes on for so long until now she grows numb. And if we sat women and men down and asked both of them to tell the horror stories between their significant other, the stories from women about their men can make you cry a river. It's shocking, some of the things that women go through. And again, the danger I find is that as men in our own small groups, we affirm that, and it's a pride of honor. Recently, we saw the story of the Russian guy picking women on the streets, and I was discussing it with one of my intimates, and I said, when I saw the videos, I felt shameful for the man folk, because the women are so exposed, even married women, simply because the men have decided to absent themselves in a very callous way. They are not there physically, they are not there emotionally, and those who pretend to be present in the relationship just go back home to sleep. And so we have people in marriages who are married, but they are single mothers. And I saw again a lot of guys bastardizing women with this Russian guy, oh, Kenyan women are these, oh, Kenyan. But I think it's societal decadence that was depicted in that short video, and it's the failure many times, without again casting aspersions on the male species. I feel like it's a failure on us as men. Because when a man steps in, if you grew up in a decent, fairly okay house where men were participatory, if a man steps in, you'd sort of feel a presence in the atmosphere change. But now we've become very, hauko, kabaridi tu. Haukuwagi shua, unasema wacha nioshe gari, 3 days later you're back. Usiniulize maswali. I think why we see this decadence is largely contributed by our refusal to step up as men. So I think it's called for all of us to sit back and really, really reflect, lay the blame where it's deserving. I think something has happened, especially to the manfolk. I don't know if it's Nyiva Mwendwa venye alienda katetea mama alafu machali wakawachwa, but we are doing very badly as men. In all fronts, financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and all the leads I can think of. And I think something has to give. So maybe in our quiet thoughts, we need to be... I was talking to somebody recently and I said, there's such honor in a sense of somebodyness. Kujisitiri, unajua kujibeba na heshima. Now people don't care for that. There's like anything goes. Provided I can meet the whatever I need, it's okay. I saw today, I was scrolling TikTok and a man was twerking heavily and turning around and somebody wrote there, men used to go to war. Imagine just a guy with beards, a makeup camera, think about it. Record. Then he gyrated heavily, you know what I mean? So it's something worth thinking about. But I think, Martin, I agree with you. We need to have honest conversations when it comes to consent. Sometimes we are peripheral at best. We say things that sound nice, but in practical terms, we don't do it. You've gone to somebody's house, you're wearing a very nice, inviting dress, and then you're like, where did I? Where? Even Cecilia, the story you've just shared, the guy says, oh, come, then he starts acting weird. So maybe wiser thing would be not to present yourself in that space. Jumjui, labda ni mrogi. You know, because guys do crazy things. Even men fear men. Ukiona jali kwa dark alley, utaendelea kutembea. I go to some forest on Gong Road, I'm a dude, okay? When I'm alone, and then if it's a straight, narrow path and I see a guy coming, I start angling myself. So naangalia kitu cha ngumi hivi ndio nitaingia kichakani. And I'm a guy. So I think sometimes the audacity to bring yourself to go to somebody you don't know quite well in their space. One time I was talking to my sisters we were having a conversation about dress code. And one of my youngest sister was saying, look, naweza piga mtu kofi mimi ndo nijaribu. So I was trying to tell her, the problem is not so much you. The problem is that those people who are on the street who we don't know, and their dementedness is what we don't want to deal with. So when we shout horse, my dress, my choice, it sounds nice on paper. And we even hashtag my dress, my choice, it's nice. And it's a clarion call that men should behave. But huyo mtu wako huko Nyamakima na amelewa, hata ajui TikTok ni nini, hajaona hata my dress, my choice. You see, so then it behooves us to go the extra mile and do the very not so pleasant thing of doing another extra job that we don't want to do, so that we avoid harm's way. Okay? Does that make sense? Any takers? Final remark before we do the last bit and then we are done and out of here? I'm so happy you guys are so patient and you've waited. Any other difference you want us to highlight? Anybody? Somebody? Everybody? Getty, you're very quiet. Una maoni? All right. Conversations about sex are often frowned upon for a myriad of reasons. Some cultural, others political, some, trauma-laden. On today's conversation, we sought to find out what are some of the palpable and subtle ways men and women differ when it comes to sex. As always, I would like to hear your mind about some of these conversations. It makes all of us rich. So write it away, post it in my DM, or just share it in the comment section, and let's keep talking. And for nothing else, because when we know better, guess what we do? We do better. Until next time, adios amigos.